minutes of the August 14, 2025 meeting.
So moved.
Have a motion, Mr. Smith, second Ms. Brown. Any additions or deletions? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Minutes are approved. Second item is August safety report.
Can I say good morning?
Morning.
August safety report. I hope you all got it in your package, but if not, just look to the screen. Days since our last recordable was 73. Days without a lost time injury was 73 also. Recordable for the month of August is 0. 2025 year-to-date injuries are 1. August incident rate is 2.2. And for 2025, our incident rate is 2.5. I'm sorry. That's what you're going to get. Got a little dyslexia going on this morning. Our handout
We
this,
have 2.2.
yeah. Yeah, they got it around right here, 2.5 right here. Anyhow, our handout this month was distracted while walking. And it's, the highlight part was us walking while using cell phone. And when I went to reading this article and I was paying attention to it, it says that distracted while walking 95% of the time is because you're on your cell phone. And it just went hand in hand with the incident we had to one of our recordables. He was actually on the cell phone when he was injured. So I was just want to bring to light that when we're working, it says in some of the stats that 52% are distracted while walking around involved on the cell phone at home. 68% of those are women.
Watch yourself.
54% of them are ages under 40. So all the men that's over 40 here, we good. We don't get too distracted. We're good. But I just want to bring awareness to being distracted while you're on the phone. And I want all our guys to know, and all the field employees to know, while you're on the phone, just if you don't know the number, stop and just use the phone. Please don't be walking while you're on the phone. And also, I want to shine a little light on, let us not forget to remember the men and women that lost their lives on this day, 9/11. And like I said, that was a terrible day in the United States. That was 24 years ago to this day. And I remember what I was doing the date that it happened. And I just want us to remember those first responders and those families who lost their lives in that tragic day. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, statements? Okay, next is financials.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Okay, so we are looking at the month of August for our electric revenue. We had 3.2 million. Water was 306,000. Sewer was 337,000. These are our expenses. So since the last meeting, we did discover an accounting error in our system as it pertains to our expenses, mainly our 418 and 419 account. So there was a major adjustment to these expenses. Our August total expenses came out to 4.2 million. Other income is now 2.6 million. Total revenue was 26.02 million. Bringing, oh, this is not the correct,
They had it in their packet.
they do? Okay, okay, sorry about that, you all. So let me look at what I have here. The net profit is now 171,000. Sorry about that. Moving on to our financial ratios. Okay, so for August, our days cash on hand came out to 87 days compared to July, which was 64. As far as the other ratios are concerned, again, we are a little behind, so we're looking at March for the fixed charge coverage at 0.91 compared to 1.31 the previous month. Gross margin ratio for March was negative 4% compared to the previous month of 30%. The operating margin ratio is negative 9.84% compared to 23.91%. The current ratio, 7.97 compared to 8.16, and the debt service coverage ratio in March was negative 1.53 compared to 4.26. And that decrease can be contributed to a major increase in our supplies and services expenses for the month of March. Any questions?
Cash on hand, where are we trying to get that to?
Ideally, where we'd like to be to get to an A rating on our bond, which we need between 120 and 180 days cash on hand. So it's just working on building up those cash reserves. So we've been working on updating our policy manuals. In the new policy manual, I anticipate in a month to 2 months we'll be asking the commission to approve the new policy manual, but there's a cash retention policy in there, and then there's also an investment policy. So we've created a bunch of policies that we haven't previously had that will kind of govern our cash on hand, our investments, how we're going to do some of those things moving forward. Just a better fiscal policy than what we've had in the past.
Okay. Anybody have any other questions? Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next item 4 is staffing reports. Good morning.
I know the last meeting we were hoping to have this fully staffed by that time, but I think we're really close. We've got still some ongoing interviews and some offers to be made to some prospective new employees. But as you can see, we've been busy interviewing and hiring people, and we're real close right now. I know Jerry had some just this week for the water department, so this may even change this week at some point for these numbers. But we've not been here in a good many years as far as getting close to being fully staffed, and like I said, we're in a good place right now. And we're on a roll, getting them in here and interviewing and filling the positions. So with that, maybe next month we'll be completely staffed.
So the open position in the environmental quality department, we're going to eliminate that position. That position's been consolidated 2 positions. So our wastewater treatment plant had a lab, and then environmental quality had a lab. So we just consolidated those services between the 2, so we're going to eliminate that. The last one position, so in reality, we only have 4 open positions right now in the organization, which that's the best it's been in a significant amount of time. So.
The electrical hires, are they all new people or are they experienced?
Some of them do have some experience. They're not seasoned, but yes, some of them do have experience, yes.
Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
So this is going to be a new thing we're going to talk about. I'm going to ask Eric, our electrical engineer, to come up and talk to you about reliability. So reliability, we're going to start reporting out our reliability, where we're at on our electric distribution system at each commission meeting. Eric's going to talk a little bit about the indices that he's going to use. I have a handout for everyone to help in terms of clarification.
So SAIDI, KD, and safety are reliability indices that are commonly used by a lot of different utilities around the country to give a numerical value to how well they are keeping the power on. SAIDI, System Average Interruption Index, is a measure of how many minutes the power is off per customer. KD is a measure of if your power goes out, how long on average does it take for the power to come back on. And then SAIFI is how many times per customer is the power expected to go out on average. Whoever has the clicker. To give you a little bit of context, for the state of Arkansas in the year 2023, which is the most recent numbers I was able to find on the U.S. Energy Administration, Energy Information Administration, they were out for an average of 991 minutes per customer. If your power went out, it took on average 433 minutes to get your power restored, and the average customer experienced a little over 2 interruptions a year. West Memphis, we use APPA's tracking system to keep track of our metrics. In the year 2024, only had 66 minutes per customer of outage. Only took 114 minutes on average for power to be restored, and less than 1 outage a year. So on average, roughly every 2 years, you'd experience an outage. And then you can see, I have, since we haven't been doing this before, I put every month this year, but how the metrics for each month have been. And for the month of August, it was only an average of 2.3 minutes per customer, an average of 175 minutes for power to be restored, and a roughly 1 in 10 chance that your power goes out.
So when we use these, so these are industry indexes, and so every major utility in North America, across the world, will use these indexes, and this gives us an accurate picture as to how we're performing relative to every other utility. So if you look at the handout, so it's basically it's a weighted average. And so we take the amount of outages, the sum of the interruptions divided by the total number of customers, and it gives us a weighted average of how long that customer's been out. You can see where Eric has the monthly trend. You can see how weather impacts our outages, right? So our outages will always go up in the summer. We'll measure it, it'll be so the 66.7 that you see, that is an annual rolling, a 12-month rolling average. So they won't all add up to 66.7 because it's got September through December of 24 on it, because it's a 12-month rolling average. But we track that in an annual basis. We do it in minutes, and it just measures our reliability, and we use that data to direct our maintenance activities moving forward. So same thing with safety. So like Eric said, so if you look at the 66.7 minutes, so on average, when a customer with West Memphis Utilities experiences an outage, they're out on average 66.7 minutes. So within 66.7 minutes, we'll have restored the power. That's the weighted average across a year. Compared to the state, which is 991.2 minutes. So that we're significantly doing better than that. We still have a lot of opportunity there that we can get better. Safety, that's frequency. And so basically our customers, like Eric said, they experience an outage. So the frequency that they experience an outage, that's what that number is. It's not measured in minutes, it's measured in occurrences. And so they basically have 1 outage every 2 years. So we can do better, but we wanted to start, Brett's going to talk in a minute about the reliable public power provider designation that we're working on. And this is one of our metrics that we use to measure ourselves. We're going to start reporting it to hold ourselves accountable to the commission. And we will have our goals, our annual goals will be to improve those numbers by a minimum of 5% every year. To put it into perspective, Florida Power and Light, they were at 54 minutes in 2024, but they spent $350 million to get there. Mm-hmm. So we could throw money at it, we could improve that number significantly, but the challenge is to really drill down and analyze our outage data, and that's one of the things that Eric is doing, is each outage that we have, our crews will fill out paperwork, they get it over to Eric, and then we analyze that. We'll do a root cause analysis on it. We'll look for trends. Do we need to enhance our tree trimming? Do we need to change our construction practices? Do we need to? So we're trying to use the data that we're collecting to direct our preventative maintenance activities so that we're not just categorically spending money, but we're actually spending money in the right place. So this is part of that equation. So we will measure this, and this is really our measurement of how we're doing each year. So we would expect, as we spend more money doing different activities, say tree trimming, we would expect these numbers to go down. You can see that they're dependent on the weather. There will be certain things that we can't ever prevent, like lightning strikes. You know, we can do things what we can do with a lightning strike is we can reduce the amount of time that a customer is out based on a lightning strike. So we will install different types of equipment out there, and that's one of the things that Eric is doing in his analysis as well. So we're going to start reporting on this every month, so you'll see where our trends go, and we can talk about specific outages. The one thing is in this, if we have a major event, what's considered a major event, and if more than 50% of your system is impacted by an event, storm, whatever, ice storm, whatever it be, that's considered a major event. And we don't calculate those numbers because they'll improperly skew the numbers. So our goal here is to kind of get an accurate representation of where we're at through the year. But if you have an ice storm that causes 100% of your system to come down, that's not really an accurate representation of what your ongoing reliability activities are. So does that make sense to everyone?
Is that same consideration given to the state numbers there? That just seems like an awfully long time for
Rural areas.
yeah.
These are the numbers that were available on the Energy Information Administration. I keep missing information. Their website, and these are just the latest numbers they have published. They didn't have a breakout of anything they may have taken out.
I was wondering, could we get that information on that Conway, Jonesboro?
Well, if they keep those numbers. I know Conway does, I know Jonesboro doesn't. So we can get the safety numbers from Conway, but Jonesboro doesn't track to this index. But to your question, Commissioner Sullivan, is so every utility that operates within the state of Arkansas, they report their reliability data, and that's where those numbers come from. So that includes Entergy, SWEPCO, and all the cooperatives as well. So the investor-owned utilities, they answer to the PSC, but there's really not a lot of metrics associated to that. And so when you have rural areas, you tend to have a higher SAIDI or duration because it takes people longer to get there, and then they have multiple issues that they have to work out before they get to it. That's still pretty high compared to the rest of the U.S. Our numbers are pretty good compared to the rest of the U.S. We're probably within the top 50 in the U.S., so maybe the top 25%. But to your point, that is a high number.
Yeah, I think to Dana's point, it'd be really more helpful if we could benchmark it against some communities that we would aspire to be or that look more like
Well,
us.
so moving forward, let's benchmark. We'll do Conway and Entergy. That'll give us an accurate representation. What I like about the Entergy numbers is they're right here in this area.
I have a question. With the new calling center that we're putting in place, is that going to affect it, or can we have our own numbers from that?
I'm sorry, can you ask the question again?
The emergency calling or the after hours calling center that we're gonna have, can we put those numbers against these to see what that is just for us? Just for West Memphis?
Well, the West Memphis numbers are just for us.
Okay. Now, these numbers are prior to the new system that we're rolling out, correct?
Correct.
So can we put those numbers against these? If the numbers are the same.
We'll see if we can do that. our new calling system's not gonna significantly improve these numbers a whole lot with response time. It will improve response time a little bit, it has improved response time a little bit, but I don't know that it's gonna be significant for this. But, I mean, if we can get the data pulled out, the problem is we haven't historically separated the data, so I don't know if we can pull it out or not, but we will try.
You know,
Can you put that on?
to that point, there was some talk in the community, I guess a lot of us are probably familiar with it over the last week, about the new call-in system that we have. And there's a perception in the larger community that it's not beneficial to the larger community. So we have a bit of a PR opportunity there.
I'm
If
working
you're
on
telling
it.
me, if
I'm
you're
already-
telling me now that it's actually improving, as opposed to not performing as well.
Correct.
So,
I've already been in talks with the team that meets with the Doppler organization frequently. I actually just talked to Karen, who sits out in the front and handles and takes all of those calls usually and monitors that for me. So I had to talk to her yesterday about that, and I got the perception. I got a lot of projects that I'm working on, but I do intend to address that on social media and through media outlets as well. So that's coming.
So a lot of times with the perception is it change, right? So, and I don't know, from what I've seen, our response times are improving, but that doesn't mean always that the customer experience is improving, right? So it's new, we're just rolling it out, so we do have hiccups that we're working through, and each time a problem presents itself, you know, we'll repair that and we'll move on. But we've addressed a bunch of those issues. I would say in maybe 3 months, let's revisit it again and see where we're at, because I think a lot of those issues will resolve themselves. And it's just anytime you take and because we had to start from scratch with the system, and you start from scratch, you build it, you identify things that come up, you'll create the fix for that.
what was the previous system that was in place? I don't even know.
We answered the phone system on site here, and so back in the utility plant, we had what we call the night watchman, and he had 3 phone lines back there, and we would just answer the phones that came in after hours.
And now a general description of what the new system looks like.
So the new system is Doppler. We call the same phone number. It will go to one of 3 US-based call centers, and they will process the call. There's a lot of functionality to the system that we are not yet using. There's going to be a learning process with our customers, but there's a lot of, our customers can upload a photo for us. So say you have a pole down in your backyard, you can snap a picture with your phone and upload it to the system, and the guys can see it before they know, and they can know right away what type of equipment they need, stuff like that. So there's a lot of functionality that as our customers get used to the system and use it more, we'll be able to take advantage of some of those things. But it's just identifying different problems and how we can move that call. One of the biggest challenges that we're having is our existing customer information system, which is a legacy system from the 60s. Doesn't interface with our new call system. We're in the process of changing that, and when the new customer information system is in place and it can interface with the AMI, which is our automatic metering infrastructure, and the Doppler system, and all 3 of those systems are working together, it will be a much better customer experience. But we're really in transition with all 3 systems right now, and that's part of our challenge. So we're having to build temporary fixes with the new system to the old system, and they're not as optimal as they should be, just because we don't want to incur a large cost to modify to a system that we know is going to be retired inside of a year.
Right, so a call comes in after hours scenario, it's routed to a call center, and then that call center immediately does what with that call?
So they will dispatch it to our metering department. Our metering department will look at our AMI system, make sure that the power is actually off to the top of the meter and it's not a customer issue. So if we get multiple calls come in, the Doppler system will group it into a call, and it will automatically go to our on-call person, and they will respond. If it's a single no power, it'll do what I said, and then we'll check to see, do we have good power going to the top of the meter? If we do, we'll reach out to the customer and tell them and say, hey, we have good power going to the top of the meter. You probably need to get an electrician. It's an internal problem. If we don't, then we will dispatch the on-call guy to the site. But we know at that point that it's a real call. The new systems will interface with the AMI, and they'll be able to do that automatically. If that makes sense.
So before, we just had a human taking the call,
Yep.
and then they would
He called the on-call guy in, and the on-call guy came in, and frequently we went out, it wasn't even our problem.
Right.
It'd be a cable line down or a telephone line down, and so we're trying to reduce the amount of truck rolls for things that aren't our problem. That helps us to control our costs.
Sure.
But we're trying to also improve that identification process down to the lowest point so that we can get someone to respond right
Does a
away.
human have to do that, check that, whether the electricity
To the way our system is right now, yes. When we get to the new systems, no. When we roll out the new customer information system, no.
Okay, so it'll happen like electronically, and then it'll be quicker.
Correct.
Okay, so that's the end goal.
That's the end goal. We're still about 12 months out on that. So we've got our data converted. They're working on it. SpryPoint is our vendor. They're working on that now, and they're working on the implementation. Once they get that implementation done, then we'll go live, and we'll have the same challenges with that. When we go live, we'll have hiccups and glitches that we have to work through, and then once we get through all those, then that'll be our end state. But we're definitely in a transition period right now, for sure.
I actually have flyers that I've already created with Doppler for our citizens. My trouble and issues have been coming up with preparing it to be put in the bills. So we have like a really wonky system with the way we do our billing or send our bills out. So there's like a specific type of paper that has to be printed on, and all these details that I'm still sorting through to try to get it to our citizens, because I know that if I put it on social media, only about 1,000 people might see it, but there's, so many more customers that need to see it, and I'm trying to make sure I get it to them the best way possible.
So you're gonna do both though, right?
Yeah,
You're gonna get
absolutely.
social-
Everything that I do, I try to do it on every possible media channel or communication channel, whether it's in person, paper, or, on social media digitally. And I know once we get SpryPoint into place, we might have an emailing system as well, so that would also add an extra channel of communication for me. But there's a lot of challenges for me to overcome with this position not being in existence ever before me. So I'm still discovering how we can best communicate with our customers with the tools that we already have, and figuring out new tools that we can get so that we can make this more efficient and effective for them.
Do we know how many of our citizens actually view the city council meetings, and how many view these meetings?
I can tell online that only about 100 to 500 people actually watch the city council meetings. I can tell just by looking at the data on YouTube and stuff. But not many people are watching it. I even include a link to see this on like our blogs that I'm now doing, as well as when I send out the press release. So every time we have anything happen, I try to do a press release to the media, a social media post, a blog post, because we just now created a blog, and I try to create a newsletter blurb about it. So there's every possible way I can write this information so that someone can see it. That's the way I've been working on it.
So the first line of defense for us, I guess, is our city council members. So I think it's imperative that they have a good understanding.
Yeah.
And they may already have it, Bob. You may have already done that, but they're gonna get the first.
So I would not totally agree with that statement.
I think it's us first.
Is to know, the problem with our city council members is consistency of message. So we have 9 city council members, so we have 9 different messages going out. And the key to our communication is consistency of message, and so that's one of the things. We had a lot of trouble through the water event that we're going to talk about, where some of our city council members maybe only got partial information, and so they were posting things, and so they were getting bad information out there. And so that's why it's so imperative to have an official message that comes out, and like Lauren said, you have to have, with social media, you might only reach 5 or 10% of your customers. With billing insert, you're only going to have about 5 or 10% that read the billing insert. So it's communication saturation is really the only way to do that, through as many channels as you can to try to reach as many people as you can. But the most important thing is consistency of message. That's where we really get into trouble, because if one group is saying or posting something, and then the utility comes out and they say something contrary, most of the time what happens is they're like, oh, well, the utility's just saying that, this is what's real, and
Yeah.
it may or may not be. And we had a lot of trouble with that in the water event.
Yeah, I found myself like responding to a lot of people because I did want them to understand that the official message would come from us directly each time we had an announcement. I didn't want people to trust and rely on people who may or may not have the official information. So, I mean, that's a big part of what I'm trying to overcome right now too, is getting people to trust that the information from us is the only information they need to take heed to, because the rest of it is probably hearsay. If they're hearing it from just someone, on the streets, unless you guys are sharing our message with them directly. That's the only way to ensure that they have the official message.
Well,
So,
and in your efforts, you have direct communications with all of the city council members.
I don't at this point.
Because if we don't talk directly to them, then they're going to only hear what they hear.
Correct.
And they're gonna make assumptions.
And that's what Bob and I have been discussing, because this all just came to light. The communication issue just came to light with this last situation, and we haven't been able, with all the other stuff that's going on, we haven't been able to pin down like a time to actually address this with the city council members. But that is on my to-do list, is to actually address this with them, because I do want to be able to talk directly to them in some way or shape or form. As I talked about, maybe I could send them an email, but I don't know if they'll check that. I don't know if it's a text message that's needed. I'm not even sure what format we need to do to go about this, but I know that we have to figure out a solution.
So the communications director, Lauren, is a new position for the utility. How long have you been here?
7 months.
7 months. So that was I know, it doesn't seem long. The communication side was a huge gap that we had, and we did a really poor job communicating with our customers. And it's not only what happens in an event or what happens when we have an outage or something like that. We do a lot of things right as a utility as well, but our customers don't realize that because we don't tell them. And so they make assumptions, and they make assumptions based on personal experience or personal perceptions, and they're not always accurate, right? And then the thing that happens with social media is once a narrative starts, it's really hard to stop that narrative, especially if it's incorrect.
With the neighborhood communication that we all get through Ring, there's a lot of conversation.
Yeah. So, very definitely a work in progress. Lauren's doing a great job. And part of it, with that being a new role and a new thing that we're doing, a lot of folks aren't used to it yet. And it's gonna take a little while to build that trust and to have our ratepayers understand that, hey, this is what's really going on. We're telling you the truth, right? We're here, we work for you. We're not a for-profit company. We're here to serve our ratepayers, and getting them to understand that and take the messages that we're sending out. It'll take some time, but we're trending in the right direction.
I definitely believe that we're starting to see a lot of people online, especially online, give more positive feedback to us. So I'm appreciative of that. I feel like the efforts to get information to them and me being able to respond to them on a regular and consistent basis is also helping with them feeling more comfortable and safe with us. So I think that's helping some too. But again, all of this is new for the city. So everything that I'm trying to do is like overcome a lot of hurdles that we had already, and with them being intensified when we have crisis situations, it only just shines a brighter light that we have to address some of these things. But I can honestly say I feel like by next year, this will be, we won't have conversations like this ever again. We'll have a flow and a system that will make more sense for everybody. But I'm working as hard as I can to establish every sort of procedure and protocol that we can put in place to prevent any sort of communications issue in the future.
This commission's been very supportive of some of our activities, but Brett's going to talk about RP3 in a minute, but part of that is we're doing way more inspections on our facilities than ever before. And the stark reality of the situation is that a lot of our infrastructure has been neglected for a very long time. So our distribution system, our electric distribution system, we went out and we started inspecting all of our poles and cross arms and lines, and we're finding that we're having a failure rate of about 30%, which is extremely high. So as we we're working to identify them as we can. One of the other challenges is getting staffed up. Now that we're getting closer to being staffed up, we can start addressing some of these things, but that's the challenge, is to be more proactive in addressing these things so that we can push these reliability numbers down. We'll finish up our tree trimming this year, so that has helped significantly. You'll see these numbers will go down next year because of the tree trimming activities that we engaged in last year, and we're finishing up this year. They'll go down significantly because of the tree trimming. Now we spent $6 million? About $6 million on tree trimming to get that, but we're to the point now where we have pulled the trees all back from our system, and we'll start reaping the benefits of that, and then it's just ongoing maintenance to keep them where they're at now. So it won't cost us as much in the future, but we needed to undertake that. So the next evolution in that process is the inspections. We'll replace all the rotted poles, rotted cross arms, and then through some of Eric's analysis and some of his activities, we'll identify more opportunities. Maybe we need to use this type of covered conductor so that we can prevent wildlife outages. So that's our next step. So we've been through the inspection process, and now we're analyzing some of our outages. So one of the numbers that you'll see in here, there actually is we had 3 wildlife outages at the substation level. But we've purchased all wildlife protection for our substations, and we're in the process of putting it in, and that will dramatically improve our reliability moving forward. So here again, with reliability, there's not one silver bullet that's going to solve all of our problems. It's a series of small things that we have to do, but we're trending that way. And when we get to the RP3, you'll see that some of the things that we're engaging in and some of the practices that we're doing, that we will reap benefits of that in the future for a very long time. Does that make sense? Any questions? I'm sorry?
I said hopefully.
Hopefully, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I used to judge the power outages by the time it decided it was gonna be out long for a while. Go out and get the generator, get my extension cords and all that. By the time I got that all set up, power come back on. Now, I've cut that down because I've got a power bank in the house. And I get my non-cable TV and set it up and get the power bank. I got the TV going faster.
Our goal is to make your power bank obsolete.
Right.
Right, so, and we do a pretty good job of responding to outages. The idea is to not have the outage, right? So that's a little bit of a different philosophy than we've had maybe in the past. But we're working toward that, and some of our, it'll take a little while. So, you know, because it's an annual 1-year rolling average, right? So you're seeing stuff from last year still before we've engaged in a lot of these things. So once some of those months start dropping off, you'll see a significant improvement.
Tree trimming pays big benefits.
Big benefits. The number one cause of outages is trees. And the number 2 cause is wildlife. So those are the 2 biggest challenges to reliability on our system. And if you get on top of the tree trimming, and more so the tree trimming than anything, you will see benefits to that in large scale events or thunderstorms, because you're not, those issues will still present themselves in a storm that just multiplied in a storm. But if you've addressed the issue and you've dealt with it, then you're gonna see benefits in a storm as well. So, a lot of work to do. We've done a lot of work already, but we still have a lot of work to do.
Any other comments on liability? Next item is discussion of the water outage.
So, as everybody knows, we had a significant water outage. It was the day after our last commission meeting. We contemplated not talking about water at a commission meeting ever again. I'm just kidding about that. But wanted to talk briefly about what transpired that led to the outage, and then what we've done since then and what we're going to do moving forward. So, and we will answer any questions. I know, because I don't know how many folks are going, who all is going on the tour today? So, pretty much everybody, okay. So, when we get back there, this is what you guys are gonna go see today. I'll be with you, I just didn't have a final count of what was going on. But in a nutshell, I'm gonna review how our system works. So the pink on the left-hand side is our raw water system. So we don't treat any surface water. We draw all of our water out of wells. We have 5 wells in the city that we get water from. Our current 5 wells are all in very close proximity to this location. 3 of the wells are actually on the property here. The other 2, one's at Worthington Tank over off of Missouri there, and the other one's at the Baptist Church right here on Graham. Is it a Baptist church?
Is Ingram, on Ingram?
No, it's Trinity
Oh,
Baptist.
Trinity, okay.
Yeah. So the raw water comes in on the pink, and you'll see it comes into where the 3 aerators are, right there, which is 27, 25, 26, and 27. The 3 up here at the top. These are the 3 aerators. Right here. Actually, in the event, those were out of service because we were doing maintenance on those when the event happened. So they weren't part of the event, but that water then goes from the aerators into our underground storage. So the green line that you see there, that is our chlorination system, our disinfectant system. You guys will see that later today when you go on the tour. And then the yellow line is our fluoridation system. So we're required by Arkansas state law to put fluoride into the water as well. And so that comes into the yellow, and that goes into our big underground storage tank. From there, if you look down at the bottom of the screen, 17, 18, and 19, those are our 3 transfer pumps. That's great, yeah, thank you, Jerry. This thing has a laser on it, but it doesn't work on the TV, so when it goes up to the TV, you can't see it. But yeah, 17, 18, and 19 are our 3 transfer pumps.
And 1 here.
And we have 1 up at the top. So after the water goes into the underground storage, we put the chlorine in, we put the fluoride in, then it goes out of there and it goes over into the logo tank. In normal operation, it goes into the logo tank, which is right there. That's an above ground tank. Stays in there, and then it goes through the manifold system down at the bottom where our high service pumps are, and that's how we disperse it out to the city. What happened in the event was the transfer pumps, 17, 18, and 19, all three of those pumps failed. And that's what led to our loss of water into our system. So, and Brett and Jerry were here that night, and they worked diligently on that. But, so the pump, was it pump 2, the one labeled 18? That's the one that the impeller fell out of, right?
Yes.
So the pump itself failed on 18, the motor failed on 19. And then 17, when we pulled it out, the impellers on it were significantly damaged on the pump. So once we had all those pump failures, we could not keep up with the demand on the water. So we were still trying to move water. The guys were out there and they were opening and closing valves. You can see we have many different paths to get it into the water, but we couldn't move water fast enough than folks were using it after we had that 3 pump failure. We went ahead and pulled the motor off of number 2 and put it onto number 1 to get that pump back in service, but then we had an electrical failure. So it was a series of events that we kept hitting one problem after another problem after another problem. By Saturday morning, we had started gaining some ground by 6 a.m. We were starting to get a little bit of water moved, and we were in our tank levels where we had positive movement on our tank levels, but by 7 a.m., all 4 of our tanks were empty. And that was all by demand. So, the majority of the city woke up at sometime between 6 and 7, and they started consuming water, and we just could not keep up with it. We couldn't move water fast enough. The normal tank level on our tanks is 25 feet. Like I said, Saturday morning at around 6, it was like 7 to 8 feet in most of our tanks. And by 7, they were dry. So that's how fast the water was going out of the system, and we just couldn't put it back in. That's why we started engaging on some of asking folks to conserve water as much as possible, asking folks to, like non-essential businesses, close down. Coca-Cola was great. They shut down right away. That was a huge help for us. So that we could start building water up. Once we got consumption under control, then we were able to start building pressure back out on the system again and get water back into the tanks. By Sunday morning, we were at about 20 feet in our tanks, and so we were in good shape at that point. But at that point, we had already had a complete loss of pressure on our system, which led to the boil orders that inconvenienced so many people. So that's, in a nutshell, that's what happened without going too many details about it. Any questions about what happened, what led to the event?
I have a question.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I have a question. The meeting before the water, we had issues. Did we not discuss one of our wells being down?
One of our wells is down, right? So well 6 is not in operation. We have a total of 6 wells. 5 wells are in service, and they've been in service the whole time, even through the event.
Okay, so we didn't have another one to go down?
We did not have another well go down.
Okay.
So just for
The issue
clarity,
with,
I'm sorry, you want to, the wells don't provide water to the city, the wells feed the tank.
Okay,
And the issue we had was getting the water from here out to the city
okay.
because of these pumps here. And over here, these were all working, we just couldn't transfer it from here to here. And the fix was to isolate this and go straight from here out to the system. We were feeding it. In fact, this tank overflowed once because we were feeding it so fast. We just couldn't get it out of here to the city because of these transfer pumps. We bypassed that. to make it work properly.
Well 6, the well that's not in service, it's not down, it works, and we can draw water out of it, but it has turbidity issues. So when you draw the water out, it's very cloudy. We're actively working on resolving that issue, because when we put that well in service, that will increase our available water by 30%. It was actually it was a construction issue. The well's never been operable since it was drilled. Do you know when it was put in?
30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, back in I thought it was longer than that. I thought it was in the
I
60s.
think most of the wells.
Number 6 was 80s, when they
Yeah,
put the
80s.
industrial park
Right,
out
because
there.
that tank's
Yeah.
not that old.
So,
Yeah,
since the 80s, but it's never been in service since then, because from when they drilled the well, we had turbidity issues, water quality issues with it. The assumption was made that it was water coming out of the aquifer, but we don't believe that it is. We believe that it's a well construction issue. So we're running that down as well. Once we get that, then we'll have that well available as well. You want to talk about what you've done since then,
Sure.
since the event?
So, we have a company that we worked with for years, probably was involved in many of those wells we put in. They contacted us before we ever really got off the ground running and said, hey, you guys need some help. The guys that were working on the aerators were on site with some equipment to help pull pumps, and he got the pump pulled in 10 minutes almost. It was amazingly fast. So we pulled motors off the top of the pumps. As Bob had mentioned, we swapped. We had a good motor and a bad pump, and a bad motor. I keep flopping. One motor was good, the pump was bad, and the other was the opposite. So we swapped the good motor to the good pump to get one of the pumps going again. We had this one out of the ground and in Stuttgart at the company that does the work on them within 12 hours after we identified that we needed to do that. Rebuilt the pump in a quick manner. They put a rush on it. They put everybody else at the, down and pumped us up to the head of the line, and we got it done and got it back. In order to do that, we opted not to have it recoated with treatment with paint, basically.
Resurfacing and all of that?
Right, because that adds a good day, day and a half, even possibly even more, so we opted not to do that with that one. Then once we got that one in place, also we had already identified that we had a couple of spare motors, but one of them that we thought was good was not. Now we have a spare motor for here, and a high service pump number 1 and number 5 are 200 horse. 2, 3, and 4 are each 100 horse. And we have a spare motor for here, spare motor for here, spare motor for here, here, and there. And also spares for the wells. So those are all up to date and current. We have those on. There's one that's not on site that's coming. They're working on it right now. It'll be here this week or the first part of next week, I hope. Once we got that done, we pulled pump number 3, and that's when we inspected it and found the impeller that picks up the water and pushes it was operating at, I don't know, probably 30% capacity, which was what was confusing for us. Because it was on, it was running, it was pumping, you could tell there was water moving, but it wasn't moving like it was supposed to. The way we found that out was by visual inspection on top of this tank where the pump feeds. So we got that one out and got it rebuilt. While we had some time with that one, they repainted it and got it put back in. We were able to reuse that motor. Some of the things that we have identified, that I've identified since I got here, is there's adjustments on the packing nuts on some of these pumps that are easy to do that we can do ourselves, that I didn't realize we could do ourselves to help prolong the motors. We've got data on when these things were installed, so we know the depth of the wells, the model number, serial number of the pump, so we can start identifying and keep the spare parts for those available with our supplier, which is normally pretty quick to get, but some of the parts are not, and I'm looking at, when we have the money to do so, maybe even buying some spare parts for the pump. If we can't do the work, and we call the contractor to do the work, we can say, here's the pump, here's the parts, make it work, bring it back, and we'll get it going. So this diagram is actually incomplete. there's actually another valve in this location right here. We do have other diagrams that show that, and this one doesn't. And I'm not sure if this was done a few years out before, the other diagrams were done before. One of the problems that we had as well, and you'll see it when we get out there, is some of these valves are hard to find. And we have a procedure, so I'll back up. As I mentioned before, the wells feed the ground storage. The ground storage feeds the logo, and the logo feeds the transfer, or the high service, excuse my misspeaking, and the high service feeds all the water towers, thus the city. We can bypass any one of these, and we'd already bypassed the aerators. Well, in order to do that, we have procedures for this valve is open, this valve's closed, and it's difficult to find those valves if you're not familiar with it. So I've actually got a plan together. One day in the future, when we all show up at work, hey, guess what? This pumps out, this pumps out, this pumps out. What are you gonna do? And we actually go do it and practice it. So we're familiar with, this is what we look for in this case, this is how we do this. And we've had those procedures, we just haven't had to use them for so long. So that was, first and foremost to me, was we don't need to develop the procedures necessarily, we just need to gain efficiency. I've got other cities I've talked to or are in the process of talking to compare ideas for maintenance plans, for preventive maintenance. Manufacturers of the pumps have all kinds of guidelines and maintenance procedures that a lot of places don't do because they consider, they get a contractor to do that. Personally, I mean, as Bob mentioned, it's very hard for me when this event happened. I can't sit and watch everybody turn valves. I just can't. I gotta go, tell me what I can do to help. I wanna get involved. I like to do my own maintenance. I like to get in and do it as much as I can. I wanna know what the pump looks like, what we can do, and I'm trying to get some of the folks that work with me to do the same and hire people that are willing to do that as well, so that we can do some of this ourselves, so that we can identify these things before they happen. There's historical data for these pumps. They've been around for 75 years. How long do they run? Under what conditions? On average. Well, if this pump's been in the ground for a year, chances are pretty good we don't have a problem with it. Well, after year 5, maybe we need to do X, Y, and Z. After year 10, we should plan on replacing or rebuilding or whatever. And those are some of the things that we're looking at doing. Also, we have one of the other problems, we didn't get alarms that notified us. And we are very diligently looking at replacing that system, or at the very least finding a stopgap, if you will, to address those issues now while we're getting it replaced. We're kind of at the mercy of the suppliers, and in that I mean cell phone providers have to provide the right equipment that makes it work the way it needs to work, that interfaces with what we have. And it's older technology, and we're trying to update that so that we can, say for instance, a pump fails. We have a list of notifications that go to certain people, key personnel, like the water treatment plant operator, me, and a backup, would all get a text message. Transfer pump number 1 has failed, and then we can address it right then. I also have a remote access. It's very limited availability to anybody else for security purposes. That I can, sitting in my house, sitting in this room, or anywhere where I have cell phone service, I can look at what's going on, see which pumps are working, which aren't, which are turned on, which are turned off, which have tripped, which have not. So one of the issues, every motor, they're large motors obviously, so each one has a breaker that controls the flow of electricity, whether it's available or not. And then there's a contactor that controls where it comes on and comes off. And inside that contactor is an electromagnetic coil that actually makes that contactor work. And then we go out to the motor. Well, there's current flowing through there. And that's one of the ways we can monitor how well pumps are performing, is by how much electric current is being used. And any one of those components fails, the motor's not going to turn on, which means the pump's not going to pump. Well, if I can monitor the amperage for each one individually, I can get an idea for how efficiently that pump is operating, or whether it's operating at all. And so that's something that we're looking at incorporating that we haven't done before. And then incorporating that into the remote access, so that I'll be able to look at that, or the operator, or whoever in the utility we determine that needs to have access to So going forward, my plan is to be able to address the issue before it becomes an issue, a widespread issue. It'll be a, hey, we gotta go take care of this versus everybody calling and saying, how come you're not doing that? For obvious reasons.
So the biggest thing, and this will happen, it's actually scheduled for today, so after the tour. So we will do our after event review, okay? And so in that after event review, what we will do is we'll identify every problem that went wrong. And then we will identify what our fix to that problem is, we will assign it to someone, and then they'll have a due date that has to be finished by. So each one of these issues that came up, we will have a documentation of what we did and how we resolved it, so that we can ensure that we don't end up in the same position again. So it's critical to do that follow-up on the event to identify root cause, basically, and then address all the issues.
So Greg, will the water system still work efficiently with 2 of the 3 transfer pumps operating? And then how many of the high service pumps are necessary to keep the system working efficiently?
Well, the answer to that is depends, which obviously demand.
Okay.
We are, in the summer, people are washing cars, we're watering lawns, people may be showering more because it's hot and sweaty mowing the grass. So demand goes up, so it takes more. And the system is designed to accommodate, and that was one thing we were not able to get to the point when we started in recovery. This tank was completely empty, and some of these pumps began cavitating because they were calling for water, but there's nothing to move. So we got air introduced in the system, which caused the problem to get caught up until we got the air evacuated, which we figured out and did. But right now, at 9:30 on a Thursday morning, I'm just gonna go off of what I've learned over the last few days, because once I got remote monitoring capability, my wife is like, are you playing on your computer again? All the time. Because I always wanna look, I wanna maintain my own proficiency, plus kind of get an idea for how it's going. Of the 4 transfer pumps, if the tanks start out full at 25 to 30 feet each, we can absorb a surge for a long period of time. But if they're not full and we can't fill them, which slows us down with the air a little bit, then we can't do that. But right now, I'm just gonna go out on a limb and say 1 transfer pump and 2 high service pumps are working. And as I mentioned, these 2 are double the capacity, 200, 100, 100, 100. And it just depends, the system is designed to sense demand, and all of them on, or one on, or the larger one or the smaller one, as case may be, and the same with the transfer pumps. So we have run, I don't know how long number 3 was not functioning properly.
But you mentioned monitoring the amperage.
Amperage, yes.
That's gonna tell you if it's working efficiently.
Exactly.
At what level it's operating.
Right, it's just like if you have a pickup truck that's empty and you drive 100 miles and you check how much gas you used, and then you take that pickup truck and put 5,000 pounds in it, and you drive it the same 100 miles at the same speed, it's gonna use more gas because it's working harder, because it has to carry the weight. Same way with the amperage. The higher the amperage, the more the motor is working. And there's a sweet spot. You have a rating on the pump or on the motor that says full load amps, and you have a service factor. And it can be a multiplication. You take the full load amps times the service factor will give you an idea for where it should be at full load, at the maximum it should be. If it's above that, then you know there's an issue with bearings, or maybe it's not adjusted properly, too much slop, not enough, slop in the shaft of the pump itself. Because these pumps, all you see above ground is about this much, but they stick down, the ones, these, not in the wells, but these stick down 8 feet, 10 feet. And so you have a shaft that connects 2 impellers on the bottom. It's kind of like a jet engine where it starts, one of them starts at a lower rate and the second one, they're spinning at the same rotation, but they move, one of them is kind of a primer, if you will, and the other one is the one that does the actual work. But it's all powered by the same motor. So you can get an idea based on the amperage. That motor's not working very hard, but it's running. I need to go check something, so she'll have parameters for it.
And that same would apply to the.
High service model, any electric motor, they're all three-phase, which is an electrical term, high voltage. This is not a fan motor like in your house, and that's why you have to have all the extra controls to operate. The contactor, the coil, and then the control circuit that energizes the contactor. Something has to tell the coil to energize, which provides power to the motor, which makes it operate. And that's the control circuit that we're talking about upgrading, or the control system.
So if we had that in place, maybe this would have been preventable.
Well, but I think certainly it was preventable to start with, but the biggest issue we had was we didn't know we had an issue to the extent we had the issue until the problem had already gotten too far for us to catch up with quickly enough. Like I said.
We did talk about doing some maintenance prior to. yeah,
Yes,
so-
we had already
We
started.
have been.
Yeah.
We've been doing a lot of stuff, and our SCADA, we do have SCADA notifications, but the modem failed on the Thursday before the event.
Yes.
So,
That's on the tanks that tell you, so
no, the modem is actually upstairs in the server room here at data
I'm
processing.
talking about, but that would have notified that the tanks are dropping
Correct.
Yes.
and would have alerted you.
We would
Would
have
have,
got,
would have notified us before the tanks even started to drop.
Oh, okay.
Motor's bad.
Output.
It's calling for the motor and it's not working, it would have said, hey, the pump's not working, something's wrong. And then we would have said, oh, well, we still have this one, or, oh, well, that's 2 out of 4, let's go down and see what's going on.
so we've
This
actually
is a-
moved to a web-based system for our SCADA where we don't have a local modem.
There's a
So,
buyer,
our SCADA provider,
you can drain this.
That's already,
Oh, okay.
that's been eliminated.
For
That's
future maintenance purposes.
Well, our last.
it was a perfect storm for
Yeah,
us.
it really was. A line-
Yes,
When they froze.
yes, because they were not circulating. And
Right.
we actually, I got the plans, and Bob has already sent them to me, that we already did with an engineering firm to put a building over top of these. And you see, when you come out there, we've already got some of the conduit, and there's some things that need to be addressed as far as the landscape and the grounds that I'm hesitant to do a whole lot with until we figure out a little bit more about this building. To put a building over top of those, because each one of these pumps has a valve with it as well that opens and closes based on operation to keep this pump from pumping back, keep it from reversing direction. But the building, we could have heat in there to keep it from freezing, and then also be easier to maintain and keep the controls out of the weather so they should last longer as well. We started that project, but it was a money funding issue, but we have that slated to approach again next year. Yep. That would not have mitigated this problem, but it certainly would have mitigated the one that we had
Well,
in
it's not
16.
all major, it's fine, it's a cascade.
It is, and there was no one event.
single thing.
I didn't have remote monitoring capability to the extent that I do now. The operator didn't notice, hey, that pump's not working right, because he didn't have the means to do so. And it's just, I mean, you see that logo tank is ways up, but you can't just walk out there and climb up there. That's been one of my biggest challenges in this job, is before I'm doing it, well, now I can't go in a confined space, or I can't climb that because I'm not
Do we know
qualified.
when the last time was that we had a total water outage like this?
A well order in 2016,
Yeah.
because one of these froze and burst.
In 2016, we had, was there a boil advisory then as well? How long did that last year, do you recall?
2 weeks.
2 weeks?
Was it? Yeah, there you go. I was gonna say, I remember it very, very distinctly,
I was there.
personal reasons, but yeah.
That's why she's here.
Are there numbers that, is there any data that shows how we stack up against other communities or against this?
There
nation?
is some, and I pulled some of that up from the state, Department of Health website, that they have some numbers. And it's not broken out by individual utility, but it says 90% of boil orders are because of equipment failures around the country. And that's EPA numbers that the state website has published. But that's something else that I kind of thought about looking at too, was the same way, is kind of give us some way of benchmarking and comparing and say, look, this is where we are, this is where everybody else is, are we doing better or worse, how can we get better?
Well, it seems to me like we are clearly implementing a plan to update and upgrade our system in a way that this will be preventable in the future. And then we, if we can, any information that we can gather that we can also, once again, put out to the larger community that may drive home the point, if it is actually the case that, not only do we have very competitive rates, but what we're delivering and the product we're delivering is also better than surrounding communities by and large in the state. So messaging is just another component, a very important component.
It's
I
very,
know
very,
it's hard to get a citywide overorder.
that was the biggest challenge. We'll always have, potential for boilers when we have a main break. That general area will have a boil order in where the main break is. So anytime you have a loss of pressure in an area, you're gonna have a boil order. Main breaks, there's not a whole lot we can do with those. We are doing some proactive things. One of the things that we haven't done that we're starting to is like just even exercising our valves, right? So it's kind of an unreasonable expectation to have a valve that's 20 years old, 30 years old, and you don't ever do anything with it, and then it's gonna work flawlessly when you need it. If you don't go out and exercise it and maintain it and do things to it. So these are all things that we are engaging in moving forward. Like I said, it's kind of the perfect storm on this one. So the SCADA system, it was a lightning strike the 2 days before that caused the motor to fail. And we had identified the problem. They were overnighting the part to us. But then this happened on Friday night. So they sent it to us Friday morning, but anyway, it was a series of events that led to this. At the same time, as a utility, it's our responsibility to ensure that water is available when everybody wants it and needs it, right? So it was a failure on our part to ensure that happens. So what we'll do moving forward is we'll identify the root causes, and then we'll put things in place, processes in place to address those. I'll be happy to share our root cause analysis, and then when we get it with the commission or even some local businesses that were negatively impacted by this event. But our goal is to ensure that we never have this happen again.
One thing that I would like to highlight is that we issued a boil order not because, oh my gosh, there's something wrong with the water. We issued the boil order because there could be something, and it was an abundance of caution that we said, hey, we have to do it anyway. But that's the reasoning behind it, is not because we identified, hey, there's E. coli in the water. That's the procedure you do to avoid that from happening, to prevent it.
The last thing I want to say about the water event, well, I'll answer any questions, but the last thing is one of the other issues was that our lab did not test our fresh water. Our lab only tested our wastewater stuff. And one of the changes since the event is that our lab, we had a certified lab, but it is now certified to test our freshwater, potable water samples as well now too. So that will save us some time. In this event, we were sending our samples up to Little Rock to be tested, and so now our own lab can test those samples. The second day, so we had this, yeah, if you remember, so I think it was Tuesday, we had collected 30 samples. So the way it works is we have sample sites across the city. It's the same 30 sites. So every month we collect these samples and we send them in to get tested. So in this event, so we collected those 30 samples, we sent them up to Little Rock. 20 of them passed, 2 of them failed. And so then we had to collect those 2 samples with a series around those 2 samples and have them tested again. And actually MLGW tested them for us the second day, which saved us a significant amount of time getting the samples, and that's how we were able to lift the boil order the following day before lunch. But now our lab is set up to do that, so we won't have that issue.
And we test the water daily.
Yeah, I put out something about that a while back.
Yeah, it's just not tested to the same level, that our labs were doing to our temperatures. And it's
I'm sorry, did you say 30 sites across the city?
Mhm.
Okay.
Any other questions about the water?
So it wasn't, I have a question.
Yeah.
So it wasn't Google?
It was not Google.
That's
So
a joke.
there's a lot of narrative, and you'll start to see Lauren is gonna be doing a lot of work. So the challenge is there's a lot of concern that some of the development that's happening is what led to this event, which is categorically untrue. There's a lot of assumption that we will have issues moving forward. We've hired an engineering firm to do an aquifer study for us. And they've come back, and the aquifer that we're in a deeper aquifer here than even the city of Memphis. The city of Memphis is in the Memphis Sands aquifer, and we're in the Fort Pillar. So their wells are about 800 feet deep. Our wells are about 1,500 feet deep. Our study has come back and said that there's ample water available in the aquifer to continue to supply the city in perpetuity and any development that we have in the city. So the data centers, any water that they would use, we have ample water supply in the aquifer. Now, water supply in the aquifer and water supply in our system treated are two different things. The water that the Google plant is going to be using, they're going to actually be using effluent water. So they're recycling the water. They're not using fresh water for any other than, their toilets, normal water use that anybody else uses, but they're not using water for any other purpose than those. But the data center part of it, the water that they're using is actually effluent water that comes out of our wastewater treatment plant, and they're recycling that water. So currently we discharge it into the river, and we're actually going to take it and we're building a pipeline down to their facility, and they're going to use that water to cool the servers, and then we will discharge it into the river.
So when you said recycle, they're not gonna use the same water over and over?
They will to a certain
To a certain
extent.
extent, and then at some point,
They'll discharge it. Yep.
Okay, but there's ample gray water, if you will. Is it called gray water?
Gray water. Gray water. Effluent, gray water, same thing.
But there's plenty of that coming from our wastewater treatment plant.
We have 4.5 million gallons of effluent per day. That they will be taking all of that effluent at the Google site. The wastewater treatment plant is in expansion right now, and we have modified it to where we can put bigger pumps in if we have to. So if we have more water that comes into the wastewater treatment plant, we will be able to pump more water to them in the future. So we're actively planning to expand that as more water comes in.
And they think 4.5 million gallons is more than enough to meet their needs?
So they originally wanted 10, and we had told them that our maximum reliable capacity that we can give them is 4.5 MGD. So part of their servers will be air cooled and part of them will be water cooled. So they're not going to consume more than we can give them on the gray water.
So it's up to Energy to make sure the air cooled supplies, the power is there.
Well, Entergy supplying the high voltage, we are supplying the low voltage. So we're supplying about 15 megawatts of low voltage to the site, and that will power. So Entergy is going to actually power the servers. We're going to power the buildings, the lights, the guard shacks, the gates, anything that would be on, say, in this building. West Memphis Utilities will power that, and Entergy is going to power the servers. So that was so they had resiliency of electricity, right? So if their servers go down, they'll still have the facility will be still up and running. So, and we have adequate power supply to do that. So they will be fed out of our Hudson substation, which is right here in the middle of town. So we have plenty of supply there in that substation.
hate to drag this meeting out longer, but we just kind of, we're in a bit of a group here, but
Yeah.
are these same conversations taking place for the water park that the mayor's promoting? So we're having these same.
Same exact conversations, yeah. So from a water standpoint and a water supply standpoint, we have the capacity. So the plant, our plant is currently, our treatment plant, our wastewater treatment plant is currently, we can process 6 million gallons per day right now. When the expansion is completed, we'll be able to process 12 million gallons per day, constant, but we can go from a peak up to 20 million gallons per day. So we can't maintain that in perpetuity, but if we had a surge, we can do 20 million gallons per day through that treatment plant. We'll have plenty of capacity for the next 25 to 30 years on our wastewater treatment plant. Same thing, I had mentioned we're working to get well 6, and that will increase our water production by 30%. We're close, in the summer, we're pretty close. We average right around, it's about 10, right? 10 million gallons per day. When we have a really hot day and everybody's using water, it's about 10 million gallons per day of consumption that we have. So we'll increase that by about, and our capacity is 12. So we're kind of getting close to our capacity on our existing well fields. And that's why we're actively working now to get well 6 back in operation. We thought that it was a much more responsible use of funds to get the well that was already drilled, if we could get it back in service, than to go drill a new well. It's considerably more expensive to drill a new well, but we already have the well, we just have to figure out what's wrong with it. So once we get that one back up and in service, then we don't anticipate that we'll have any water supply issues for the next 15 to 20 years either, when we increase by 30% our well water intake. Our biggest challenge right now is moving forward is electricity. We don't have really any real concerns with electricity on the south and west part of town. The northeast part of town is where we have our biggest electricity challenges. So we're going to have to build a new substation up somewhere east of Southland, north of 40, somewhere in that area right there. We're going to have to build a new substation probably within the next 5 to 10 years. But we are working on that now. We're financially planning for it. We're putting money aside now for that. We already have our level 5 engineering assessment done. We've already spoken to Entergy. They're our transmission provider. So even though we have our own generation, we have to get it there. And so Entergy, we use Entergy's transmission lines to get it there. So they also have to have capacity, and we're actively working on that now so that we'll be ready for that expansion. Southland has already let us know that they have intentions to expand as well. And so, like some of those substations, the lead time on a substation transformer is now 36 to 48 months. So if we order one right now, it'll be 3 to 4 years before we actually take delivery of it. So we're having to extend our planning horizons to be able to serve our needs when we need them, and that's all post-COVID. So COVID changed a lot of things with supply chain, and that's where we're running into some of those supply chain issues. So we're actively planning, we're actively working on it, and we are incorporating all of the development that's happening right now or that's proposed into all of those plans. So even from a collection system, so we're using a contract engineering firm, RJN, to do a flow analysis of our wastewater system, and they have incorporated all of the development in their model, and so they can tell us what will happen with all of our flows on our wastewater system moving forward, and where we need to modify to incorporate those increased loads. And so we're actively working on all of that stuff.
Is the availability of the electricity an impediment right now to Southland's expansion plans?
No.
So they have, what they view as their expansion plans, we can service their needs for that.
We can service their needs by the time they're ready for it. Gotcha. We can't service them right now, but like I said, we're actively engaged in working on that. So by the time they have the building constructed and they're ready for the load.
And so the location of the water park, of course, we don't really know just where it's
The
gonna be.
location of the water park would be to the west of Southland. That parcel, so from, you know, where Bill's Grill Road is, so from Bill's Grill to 7th Street and from the Welcome Center to Southland Boulevard, it'll be in that parcel right there is where the water park.
Yeah.
But the water park, it has, Buc-ee's will actually use more electricity than the water park will. And there will be a demand for water once the water park to fill it, but once it's filled, it'll be a relatively minimal usage, so they recycle most of that water.
And electricity same question for electricity for the water park. The whole, there's a pretty good sized hotel, I guess, going in there.
Yeah, we have, we could feed the water park right now from the available power that we have out of our Owens and our Lehigh subs. Any other questions?
I have a statement.
No, I mean, so look, these are all good questions, and I would much rather be transparent and talk about it, right?
Absolutely.
That's the way that we kind of solve the misinformation that's going on out there, is to be upfront and just talk about it.
That's right, and so we are actively working
We
on
are actively
communicating
working.
that verbiage that the community can understand, correct?
Well, we are starting to now. So one of the challenges that we run into with some of these things, especially some of the development, is we're under a non-disclosure agreement and we aren't allowed to talk about it for a certain period of time, but things get out, right? And so, the Google facility is a perfect example. The Memphis Business Journal broke that story back in May. And we couldn't actually talk about it from a legal standpoint and kind of disclose some of that information until now, right? And so we're gonna have to play catch up a little bit, but the more transparent that we are with that catch up, the better we'll be moving forward. So
I can say that I will be putting out information really soon about Google, so just stand by. It's coming. I'm working on it today.
Thank you all.
So, and you'll be hearing a lot of stuff, so there is, I can't talk about a lot of it, but there are some very, very, very significant benefits that the community is going to realize from this partnership with Google. And there'll be things that the community receives from them that are going to be very beneficial for the community. They're going to have a way more positive effect than a negative effect. You'll have to trust me on that for a couple of weeks, but there'll be more stuff that comes out in a couple of weeks. Any other questions about water?
Okay, moving right along. Next item is the RP3 update.
More handouts.
Everybody's getting a handout. I know we've alluded to in previous meetings that we are working towards getting a designation with RP3. This is not from what you're looking at, but I've got a bit of narrative here that I want to just kind of go over and give you a bit of. So.
I didn't know there was another slide.
No, there's not. This is something else that I grabbed. So this is from APPA. And it's talking about an American Public Power Association Reliable Public Power Provider RP3 designation. It's a prestigious 3-year certification. It's recognizing the public power utilities that demonstrate a high level of proficiency in reliability, safety, workforce development, and system improvement. It signifies a utility's commitment to industry best practices, operational excellence, and providing safe, reliable, and efficient service to its community. Now, what this designation means, the operational excellence. Utilities that earn the RP3 designation show that they have sound business practices and a commitment to industry standards in providing electricity. It's under 4 key principles, and I think that's what your handout is got there, with the key principles. The designation is awarded based on high proficiency in 4 main areas. Reliability. It's tracking and improving system reliability with industry standard metrics. Along with that, it's collecting, analyzing the data, just like with Sadie and Katie, having mutual aid agreements, devising and using system-wide disaster management or emergency response plans, and implementing cyber and physical security. Then from a safety aspect, it's adhering to safety manuals and implementing rigorous training for safe work practices. So in 2023, this body adopted a safety plan for the utilities that also incorporated a PPA safety manual, and that was a good step towards safety and developing this culture of safety. It shows our commitment from the top, management, all the way through the aspects of the company. The delivery of safe and reliable electricity demands, benchmarking safety metrics, focusing on frontline workers, and implementing rigorous safety training. All that's part of your safety culture. In the RP3 application, you must indicate an accepted safety manual, which is what I just alluded to. We adopted APPAs and our own generalized safety manual. Then under workforce development, it's investing in employees through training and development to increase knowledge and skills. And what they're wanting to know under this application process is how do you train your staff? Through webinars, workshops, conferences, college courses, in-house programs. This is all the things that they want to know, is how do you handle your workforce? And then the opportunities that you provide for networking with other public power colleagues, and encouraging your employees to expand memberships through state, regional, national committees. Then under system improvement, it's maintaining the utility's physical assets and engaging in long-term planning for future growth and performance. So what they're wanting to know is, how are you managing your assets? System improvement, show your participation in research and development programs or grants or anything that you're doing there that's improving your system. So those 4 disciplines there are what we're being graded on, and that's what our team of 14 people have been working on. More recently here, we're meeting every week. We're getting down to the 30-day or September 30th application deadline. We are very close to getting all that compiled together. Let me back up just a minute. I want to touch on a couple of things about the RP3 designation. Some of the things that were just being gone through with the water system and what needs to be done, this is for the electric side. And it's showing what we need to be doing as a municipal utility for our electric department and our distribution system and all these same things of testing and monitoring and making sure you've got preventive maintenance plans. It's getting you on the right track to do what you need to do, and they're recognizing you for that and all the information that we're having to provide and lay out in this application. So one of the things that we benefit from having this designation is that there's a community value to it. fosters a culture of excellence. It translates into measurable value for the, excuse me, for the local community. And then it also is going to show our credit worthiness. Strong RP3 designation can indicate good financial health and potentially improving our utility rating. So the application process is kind of where I was headed. Thank you so much. Excuse me for just a second. That helped. Thank you so much. The application process. It runs from May until September 30th of each year. It is a 3-year cycle application. This is utility's first year to actually put the application in. We've tried in the past to get started on it, and there was not 14 people involved. There were only a couple of people involved, and it's a vast amount of work that has to be compiled and documentation that has to be brought together. Our leadership team has done a really good job of pulling together, getting this information. We split up duties throughout these 4 disciplines and handed them out to everybody. We're coming back even next week with even more information. We're waiting on some testing results and things to get back. We're currently at probably a platinum level with the number of points that we've got. From 98 to 100 points is a diamond level. And from 90 to 98 points is a platinum level. 80 to 90 is a gold level. In our last meeting this week, we were over 90 points. We were closer to the 95. If we can be able to pull in all the rest of our information. And again, if we get this designation, it's something that we're going to proudly display next to the West Memphis Utility name, and prospective businesses, anything that wants to come in here, we can always point to that and show that we've done our homework and we're doing everything we need to do as far as the utility to be on top and progressing and not behind in any kind of way. And that 3-year cycle keeps us on top of that. So looking forward to it. We've got a couple more meetings to go, and then we're going to put this thing together and submit it. Like I said, I'm fairly confident we're going to get a designation. We're hoping for a platinum out of this. But we'll be tickled with anything we get because we've done a lot of good work. And just, we're going to see here in the end of the month.
I'm sorry, did you say that we were currently at platinum?
As far as the points that we can add up ourselves, there's still an 18-person review panel that's going to go through.
Okay.
And you know, you've got to expect that a couple points here and there are going to get kicked out or some things. But within that range of 90 to 98 points, I think we will hit that, and we should be able to get that. Any other questions?
Thank you for your hard work on that.
Thank you.
With the RP3, I know some of you, I've reached out to you. Part of it is we are asking, we're putting out information about workforce development, speaking to each person or people that we have in our organization who have community ties that we can jot down. I know Ms. Brown sent me something. Mr. Smith, you gave me something. We looked at some of your resumes to try to pull that information as well, but there's also dates missing. So if I come to you and ask you about some dates, that's what I'm talking about.
Mrs. Brown. So we have a motion to adjourn. Do we have a second?
Second.
Third, fourth, fifth.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody, for attending.